Good afternoon, everybody. It's Phoenix with All Talk Wrestling, and today I wanted to bring you guys a quick video on everybody's favorite flagship show on Mondays. That's right, I'm talking about Monday Night Raw. For the better part of a decade, Monday Night Raw has been at times unwatchable, and it hurts me to say that because I'm an individual who grew up watching Monday Night Raw, watching WWE, WCW, wrestling in general, and I was always entertained by it. But nowadays it feels like the product is lazy, it's weak, and it's just uninspiring and ultimately predictable and unentertaining. And that's not what I want from a show that I loved so much when I was growing up, from a company that I've been following since I was young. And as bad as it is, I really think that there are ways to save and salvage it. So here are some points and tips that I think that could be taken in order to help salvage or save Monday Night Raw, just based off of what they have right now. So of my 7 ways to make attempts in order to save Monday Night Raw, I think that step number 1 is going to be establishing a good commentary team and not change the voices that people hear on Monday Night Raw on a 6 or 12-month basis. Growing up, you knew that there were 2 voices that you generally heard on Monday Night Raw, and it was Jerry the King Lawler and good old JR Jim Ross. Nowadays, it seems like the broadcast team can change after a pay-per-view. After a few pay-per-views, they usually make these changes. They swap between who's on Raw and who's on SmackDown, and I don't think that that's the thing that they need to do. I think that they need to stick with a 2 or a 3-man broadcast team and let that be the people who do the color commentary on Raw. If you want to have Byron Saxton on Monday Night Raw, keep him on Raw. Don't change him off of the team. Don't switch him over to SmackDown. If you want to keep Corey Graves on Raw, do that. And even if you want to have a lead person, let that individual be the person. I don't have a problem with Adnan Burt being the lead commentator on Raw, but there was no reason to take Tom Phillips off. I mean, he did a good job, and he made the voice of Raw like kind of feel like something as of lately. So that's one thing that they don't need to do. Don't need to keep changing the team every year after WrestleMania. Find a team, establish a team, and let that be the team that leads the voice of Raw. All right, tip number 2, you don't need to keep running it back. You don't need to keep running it back. You do not need to continuously run rematch after rematch of the same match over and over. Perfect example of that, the Raw after Mania. The Viking Raiders came back and they faced off against Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander, which I didn't really have an issue with that match at all. The issue that I had is that the very next week, they ran that same match back, and it didn't make sense to me as to why. The Viking Raiders won clean over Alexander and Benjamin, so there was really no point to run the match back to any capacity, to any facet. And you don't have to run back variants of the same match. What I mean by that is the New Day faced off against Jackson Ryker and Elias on the Raw after Mania. The very next week, Kofi Kingston, I believe it is, faced off against Jackson Ryker or Elias. I don't know, they look alike, but he faced off against one of them. And what I immediately said was, that means that next week it was Jackson Ryker. So I'm like, immediately we're going to be getting Xavier Woods versus Elias the following week, and that'll happen 3 weeks to some capacity. The New Day has faced off against Elias and Jackson Ryker. You don't need to have 75% of a month be tied down to 4 people having 3 different type of matches. It's not necessary. It limits the expectation of what wrestling we can get. Like, there's no problem with finding other opponents for people to compete against, because the only thing this is going to lead to is matches that they have to face off against each other at pay-per-views. And it's like, why are they putting Raw caliber matches on pay-per-view? So you don't have to keep running everything back every week. Sometimes it's okay to dip your toe into a match concept, and move on to other opponents. That's something that NXT, AEW, and Impact Wrestling do better than Raw and at times SmackDown. So that's tip number 2. Just stop running it back. Tip number 3 is going to be they have to stop with the no disqualification and count out finishes, especially in main event matches. We need definitive winners. We need definitive decisions. There's nothing that's beneficial to a wrestler on disqualification finishes or count out finishes. It doesn't save championships. It only prolongs feuds that after a while nobody's going to want to see anymore, and it makes it just makes everybody involved look weak. Like, if somebody's coming out to do commentary, you know that there's going to be a disqualification finish. Or if somebody has a partner that's out, you know there's going to be a disqualification finish, and it severely cripples the expectation of wanting to have a match. Like, most of us will be waiting all night for a main event match. I don't know, AJ Styles versus I'll say AJ Styles versus Drew McIntyre. We've been waiting all night for this because we want to see where this is going to go. And at the end of the night, Drew McIntyre either wins or loses the match by disqualification because of some shit that happened. That's something that WWE has to stop doing. Stop with the disqualification and the count out finishes on your flagship show. Not a lot of other promotions or even wrestling programs do this. They over abuse the disqualifications and count out finishes. So please just stop that. Just stop it. It's not necessary. Go a whole month without having distraction, disqualification, or count out finishes. Please. That'll save the product heavily. So tip number 4 is going to be kind of a piggyback to tip number 2, and that's going to be stop using the same talent every single night when you have a plethora of superstars that you can use in certain spots. So if you wanted to get a tag team over, and I guess that I kind of put on this, like, let's just say, for example, you want to get the Viking Raiders over. They faced off against Benjamin and Alexander, the Raw after Mania. You have other teams and you have other superstars that you can use to have them face off against. So you don't have to keep running the same match over. If somebody's just going to be there to get squashed, then that's absolutely fine. Just let another team get squashed. Don't continuously feed them the same superstars week in and week out. Let them dip their toe into different possibilities. Let them face off against other people. You have plenty of people chasing around the 24/7 championship. Those could be people used to build up new stars. If they're people that others need to get over, like, they're there. You don't have to keep running the same talent over and over. And the show is way too long for you to keep using the same 9, 10, or 11 superstars over and over. Like, start expanding even your catering superstars that you want to use. Put them more on TV. The fans will appreciate it because, hey, we got a Drew Gulak sighting in the ring and we like the way that he works. You could accidentally put on an exciting match that somebody wants to see, but stop running the same superstars over and over. You don't have to do that. You have the talent to be able to utilize them as you see. Tip number 5 is going to be break out the special match stipulations every now and then. It doesn't have to be every night, but every now and then is good. The example that I give by that, the Sheamus versus Drew McIntyre feud that was going on a little earlier this year before the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania. We had got a match between those two the night before, and it was brutal. It was crazy. And I really did much appreciate it, as a wrestling fan. And they had a no disqualification match or false count anywhere match on Monday Night Raw, and that match was absolutely epic. Like, I think it was one of the best matches that WWE had put on. But that's a bright spot that you have. Every now and then, there's nothing wrong with pulling out the specialty matches. Pull out a table match every now and then. Pull out a ladder match for a championship, sometimes on free TV. Like, we wouldn't be against that. Pull out some special stipulation match that has a benefit to the people involved. I think that that's something that they should do a little bit more of. They've shown in the past that it can be a success, so use it a little bit more. We don't need to have the same matches over and over, and especially on matches where there's possibly going to be a disqualification. At least make an interference or a use of a weapon in the match. Makes sense. Make it a part of the rule where they are able to do that. But special stipulation matches every now and then is not a problem. They do that, but do it just a little bit more, and it'll make the product a little bit more entertaining. And if you're going to have a special stipulation match, advertise it in advance. Don't just audible that type of match the same day. People will get behind that as well. So that'll be my 5th tip. Tip number 6 is going to be that the show should never, ever run nearly as much promotion, commercial, and backstage time as actual time spent in the ring watching wrestlers. Yes, it is sports entertainment, so there is the entertainment aspect of it, but it's still wrestling. We are all wrestling fans, not sports entertainment fans, wrestling fans. And for a 3-hour show, an hour and 30 minutes of your show should not be wrestling, whilst the other hour and 30 minutes is backstage interviews and segments that doesn't accomplish anything, doesn't get anywhere. It's just kind of cringy and hard to watch. These segments should be special. Have a limited amount of them. Not everybody needs a backstage segment. They interview some wrestlers 2, 3, 4 times a night. It's not necessary. We don't need to see it. We don't need to continuously see everybody with their talk shows. Make those a special thing. Miz and Morrison shouldn't come out every single night doing the dirt sheet or whatever it is that they do. Make that a once every so often type thing, because all it's doing is taking away time that they could be putting on matches with people. So there should never be as much promo time as wrestling time. And if you want to say, well, they did a lot of promo time back in the Attitude Era or even the Ruthless Aggression era, yeah, they probably did. But Raw and SmackDown at that time, especially Raw being the flagship show, wasn't a grease fire back then the way it was. It was actually special. They built stars. They made feuds meaningful. They made matches that made the episodes meaningful almost on a weekly basis. So we wasn't getting crap after crap that people complain about. So you can't say that they did it then, because there was a caveat then. It was better than it is now. So if you're going to do that, at least make sure the wrestling that we're getting in between makes sense and is good. And last but not least, my 7th tip is you have to build new stars and cripple the 50-50 booking concept. What I mean by that, here's an example. Damian Priest came onto Monday Night Raw as a new star, and he was being booked very well. Most of that was because he had Bad Bunny on his side, and of course Bad Bunny was getting the exposure, but Damian Priest was actually really good. And Damian Priest lost a match on Monday Night Raw to The Miz and Morrison, albeit there was a roll-up finish, cheat by the Miz or whatever, but there was no reason for a new star in Damian Priest to have lost that match against The Miz and Morrison the day after they had lost a match, or 2 days after they had lost a match at WrestleMania. Like, that didn't make any sense. There's no need to continue this 50-50 booking. It shouldn't be Miz and Priest split or Morrison and Priest split. If you're building somebody like Damian Priest to be an eventual star, build him to be that star and don't have 50-50 booking. For instance, look at what they did with the tag team match between the Viking Raiders and Benjamin and Alexander. There was no 50-50 booking there. Benjamin and Alexander lost 2 matches clean to the Viking Raiders. If you're going to establish and build somebody based off of a return, based off of a debut, do not give them this crappy 50-50 booking. Look at what they did with Rhea Ripley. Although she got the Raw Women's Championship, there was no need for her to have lost a match at any facet, even if it was a tag team match where she was partnering with Asuka and cost them the match. There's no need for her to have lost a match that early, because right now on Monday Night Raw, I'm pretty sure she has no wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw or indecisive finish. I don't think that she has a win on Monday Night Raw. I could be wrong. I want to go ahead and double check that. But if that's the case, and that's your Raw Women's Championship, what the hell are they doing with this booking? Dead the 50-50 booking concept. If you're going to build around stars, let those stars have healthy win streaks. I will say this much, and not to put a comparison on companies, but the one thing that AEW and in times Impact has done very well, and especially NXT, is they don't trade goofy 50-50 booking that does not have it doesn't have a meaning You know, if a superstar wins, there's a reason that they're winning. They're continuously racking up their wins because it builds to something else. WWE needs to readopt that concept and stop thinking that we care about rubber match concepts where this person won this week, this person won this week, so next week this person's going to win, and when they get the win, it's just going to cause them to have to face each other again in about a week or so. And I guess you can also put this concept on championship defenses as well. If a champion beats a challenger clean, as Bobby Lashley did to Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania, at no point should they be putting Drew McIntyre into consideration to be the WWE champion. I mean, technically, in his last 2 defenses or attempts for the WWE championship, and 2 out of his last 3, he lost. Cash in by The Miz. Of course, that's nothing he can control, but he lost clean to Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania. So him getting another WWE championship match where you have an opportunity to build Bobby Lashley against somebody new and credible is hurt, because they're just running the same shit they did last year. And I guess that statement ties into everything else that I was saying. But to me, these are 7 steps that you could take, probably even more, but the first 7 that I wanted to point out that you could really take in order to make Monday Night Raw a better product than what it is. Because sadly, on a week-by-week basis, it's getting more unwatchable. And yes, I still watch it even though I think that it sucks, because I'm a wrestling fan and I want to be able to be surprised one day because they may pull out a rabbit out of the hat. I wouldn't know, but I'll continuously watch as I watch all the other programs as the fan that I am. And that's all that I have for today. Let me know what you guys think as far as the tips that could be used to potentially save Raw. What things do you think that I said were things that should be taken off of the list because they wouldn't factor into bettering the program? And what would you add as far as wanting to better the program for Monday Night Raw? Comment on the video, like and subscribe, support the channel. I do appreciate it. Thank you guys. And as always, I'll see you at the next one.